Hey guys, Vince Nero here, Content Marketing Manager with Siege Media. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can determine if a site will link out to you. So this is something that I've struggled with as a link builder, and once I've really discovered how to do it, it really has streamlined my process, cut down the time it takes to do outreach, and given me a lot more confidence in the work that I'm doing. So hoping that I can share some of these tips with you guys today. So before I get any further, I just want to mention that these are signals that a site might or might not be interested in your link building outreach, not something a site is doing wrong. And of course, there's always going to be exceptions to each of these signals. And lastly, you can always still get a link out of a site, even if it has a negative signal. So first thing, you want to confirm that your content is a great fit for the site. Let's get that out of the way first, because if it's not good, nobody's going to link to it. I actually did a video that I can post in the description with Ross. Talked about using the success method to come up with some really linkable topics. So, you want to make sure that you have that going in, because otherwise none of the stuff I'm going to tell you is really going to work. All right, so getting into it, when you're doing outreach, I like to go into it with kind of like a elimination scorecard. And what I mean by that is we're going to evaluate a site and look at negative factors and positive factors. And if the negatives outweigh the positives, you're going to toss that site out. So first negative cue, negative signal is if they say that they're advertising anywhere on the site. So it might be the navigation. You might see it as a sponsored post somewhere. Typically this will be like a competitive market. They'll be looking for money anytime that you offer them a piece of content. Next thing you want to look at is if they're creating their own graphics. You can look for headers that are really beautifully designed with like a really specific style. Also live photography with maybe some watermarks. Those are signals that they're probably doing a lot of content design in-house and they aren't going to want to link externally. So next thing you want to check out is if they're kind of like an SEO savvy site. And what I mean by that is if you see links to a post that's like a really keyword driven, obviously keyword driven post in the navigation or in the header somewhere, that's a signal that they really get SEO, and obviously that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing for them, but typically those types of sites don't link out. They got their own thing going on, they have their own strategies. Next thing you want to check out is the recency of their posts. So if they haven't posted in like 3 to 6 months, you're probably not going to get a good response from them, because the blog is probably being cast aside and they're working on something else at the moment. So, don't want to bug them. You're probably not going to get a good response anyway. So another thing is if they're a really, really large brand and you're a really, really small brand, but larger brands typically, again, they have a large budget. They're probably working on their own content. So negative signal right there. All right. So those are kind of visual cues that you can look at. A couple of these other negative signals you have to dig a little bit deeper for. And the first one is if they have a lot of no-follow links. And there's actually Chrome plugins that you can download that show, if a link is a no-follow. Again, that's not a bad thing, but typically a no-follow link is only good if it's from a large site like a Forbes or Entrepreneur. It'll give you some nice brand recognition, but it's not going to give you the SEO value that a lot of link builders need. Okay, another thing you want to check out is their social media following. A lot of these big sites, again, like a large brand, if they have a ton of social media followers, they're not necessarily going to be as into sharing a link from some person they don't know. They got their own thing going on. They're probably getting sponsored posts left and right, so I would avoid those. Last thing is if they're linking externally, but it's only to .gov sites. You'll come across this a lot in broken link building, but a lot of these sites like to typically build like a resources page from all really high DA .gov sites. So those are the negative signals. Moving on to the positive signals. First thing's pretty simple is looking if you see a guest post anywhere on the site. Typically, they're going to be open to guest posts, obviously, external contributors. Always be sure to read the fine print. Sometimes they ask for specific word counts or something specific in the subject line. If you nail those, you'll be a lot more likely to get their attention. Next thing is if they actually share external pieces. One way to check that is using a tool like Moz or Ahrefs. Typically, you'll look for something like an infographic, and if they're sharing an external infographic, There you go. There's your link. Next thing you want to look for in the probably navigation is if they say anything about sending in tips. You'll typically see this in like a news site, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Next thing you want to check out is if it says to write for us anywhere on the page. And that's kind of like the guest post thing, but you have to kind of be careful with those because sometimes they're not looking for just a single link or a one-off. They want contributors who are going to contribute monthly or a weekly basis. So it could be great for a small brand who's trying to build their recognition online, or maybe like a new writer. But for like an average link builder, that might not be the way you want to go. Still a positive signal. Last one is if you see resources, link pages, recommended sites, related links, anything like that. Typically, again, it'll be like a broken link building scenario where it's going to list a ton of resources. They're going to link externally. Watch out for the .gov sites, .orgs. Also be careful because doing broken link building, you're going to come across a lot of old sites. Stuff from like 1996, like the old Space Jam website that's still up there. Avoid those if you can because nobody's using them. All right, so, my last bit of advice is typically if you're on the fence with any of these, just avoid it. I'd skip that site. If you're not 90% confident in doing outreach when you're sending that email, again, if you receive this email and you had a blog, would you give this guy a link? If you could say yes to that, then they're probably going to give you a link. Feel pretty confident about it. So use the scorecard, run through those negative signals, run through the positive signals. Hopefully that helps evaluate your site. If you guys liked it, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please hit me up in the comments section or email me. Thanks again.